You can watch a free video excerpt from the second subscription level and continue watching other exclusive videos at a 50% discount on my Boosty. Enjoy watching. Description: incredibly beautiful, kind, strong, but what lies behind that fake smile? The moment will come when everyone will regret their actions. They will make sure of that. Part 5. Barrier? Naruto asked, looking around the room with interest. Everything was as expected. Just looking at the Uchiha, you could tell he was quite the fan of black, but not to this extent. The dark gray curtains were slightly open. Various scrolls and sheets of paper lay on the blue table. To the side was a bed, also all in dark colors. But what surprised her most was something else. Oddly enough, the room's most striking feature was the snow-white carpet that occupied half the room. In fact, she was more struck by the barrier at the entrance. It wasn't as sturdy as the Uzumaki clan's, but then again, why bother? And they had barriers like that in every room except the kitchen and living room. My brother and I usually come home late, and to avoid waking anyone up, we placed them almost all over the house. The Uchiha quickly explained and approached the cabinet. Uzumaki Hatake, meanwhile, continued to examine everything. After quickly glancing first at the table and then at Sasuke, she crept up to the scrolls and began examining them with interest. Wow! So you can use lightning too? Chuckled the Jinchuriki, narrowed her eyes slyly, clearly plotting something. During their rare training sessions together, they always practiced taijutsu. Sometimes they even used techniques, but only in extreme situations. That's how she learned about Fireball. Naruto always noted with some satisfaction that the brunette was an excellent opponent and training partner. Perhaps it wouldn't even be a bad idea if he became her teammate. They could already be called friends. Unusual, but friends nonetheless. So many similarities and differences, so many shared themes and diverse thoughts that neither of them could express out loud. So similar that it was starting to irritate. And you thought I only had Kaito? Uchiha rolled his eyes and finally unfolded the futon. Guess what color it was? After a moment, he approached her and raised an eyebrow. I only saw him. She shrugged, straightened up a little, thoughtfully took one of the scrolls and twirled it in her hands. If you want, I can teach you my favorite Raiden technique. My father taught it to me. She finished without a smile, put the scroll back, and walked to the futon. It had been difficult for her to accept that this man was no longer alive, difficult and painful. Uchiha remained silent, but that was even better. It was better for her not to tell him now that life goes on and how wonderful it is. Of course, he wouldn't have said that anyway, first of all. Uchiha, secondly. I wish I could believe that myself. Finally, he sighed quietly and followed her. He slowly sat down next to her and lightly put his arm around her shoulders, feeling the warmth spread through her body. I'm not good at calming down, so be content with this. And yes, I wouldn't mind learning this technique, he muttered quietly into the back of her blonde head, drawing the Jinchuriki's surprised gaze. At that moment, she was truly at a loss. It seemed pleasant and reassuring, but this was Sasuke. You could expect anything from him. Before, she would have said how predictable he was and how easy it was for her to figure out his next move, but the more they knew each other, the more doubts arose, even though it should be the other way around. Like now, for the Uchiha to be soothing? Life hadn't prepared her for this. Thank you, she hugged him back, and after a while, she didn't even notice how she fell asleep. This day had put too much pressure on her emotionally. Mikoto came to them and with a good-natured smile, invited them to go down to the kitchen, but before that, she reminded them to wash up. Your Ka-san is kind, the blonde said with a barely noticeable smile, combing her long hair. Sasuke sat on the bed, already collected, watching Hataki's actions. I know. He nodded and looked away, looking at the table. So when are you going to show me the right technique? Seeing that the blonde was already ready, he headed towards the door. I think after the academy we can, but before that I'll stop by a place I usually grab a bite to eat. If you want, you can come with me for company. Having received the long-awaited HN. In response, she rolled her eyes and began to descend the stairs. If you don't want to, no one is forcing you, But keep in mind, if I forget about training, it's not my fault. And raising her head proudly, she walked around the frozen Sasuke. So why did he have to do this? It's not that he was against it, but already knowing where she might go. It would take a long time. And he'd have to pay, too. You're getting cheeky, Naruto. He glanced sideways at the pleased Hatake Uzumaki and poked her in the side, causing a quiet "Ow. Watch your step, you've got your head so high, you can't even see the sky, and the ceiling is just like normal. Where are you looking?" It was Uchiha's turn to smirk and walk around the blonde with a comically twisted face. "Go away." Duck, but she frowned slightly and hurried after her disgruntled friend. From the kitchen, the clatter of dishes and some quiet conversations could already be heard. "Oh, you're already ready. Good morning." As soon as the boys crossed the threshold, a brunette immediately flew up to them and led them to the table. "Naruto-chan, do you need to get your hair braided?" Uchiha asked as soon as she sat them down at the table and turned back to the stove. The blonde barely kept herself from choking on her tea and patted Sasuke on the back, who couldn't contain his coughing fit. "And no need, Mikoto-san. I'm already confused." She awkwardly looked away, under such pressure of attention from the other eyes. "Well, if that's the case, then good." The Uchiha even responded somewhat sadly, but immediately smiled. Otherwise, breakfast went normally. Mikoto and Naruto's quiet conversations, Itachi's wary glances, along with Fugaku's and Sasuke, who only occasionally glanced at the blonde and managed to devour his favorite tomato salad. "I'm faster, just admit it." The Uchiha snorted and sped up even more. The girl muttered something under her breath, but she wasn't about to give up. She hadn't trained for this long, and now she was about to lose to her main rival? "Never!" She growled softly and added chakra at her feet. Sticking out her tongue one last time, making sure he still hadn't understood, ignoring the indignation behind her, she dashed toward the academy. If there was one thing she loved, it was annoying the Uchiha. "What else, topic?" She laughed merrily when she saw him level with her and dispelled the clone, already running ahead again. Needless to say, they burst into the office together, tearing everything apart as they went, and still managed to quietly become frightened. "Iruka-sensei, we apologize for being late. We were helping Grandma cross the road." Naruto immediately began making excuses, seeing the frowning teacher approaching them. She put on a sad voice and tilted her head forward slightly. She looked like a guilty kitten backed into a corner. Her classmates were so touched that they began looking reproachfully at Yumino, as if he were the one who was late and barged into the classroom. But he knew it was just one of Kakashi's excuses. He exhaled quietly, mentally counted to 10, and growled something, looking around at the children. Realizing that no one would be on his side, he gave in and waved his hand toward the desk. "Sit down already." The blonde smiled sweetly at the end, but inside she was starting to gloat. Uchiha was the only one who realized this, rolling his eyes and heading to his seat, grabbing his friend along with him. They'd started sitting together recently, when Naruto started showing up late for class, and Iruka decided to punish her by seating her with Uchiha. Well, things had gotten worse. They were both late. Now Yumino was seriously worried that Hataki's disease wasn't just hereditary, but that it was also contagious. "I'm bored. It's only been 15 minutes since class, and Hatake Uzumaki is already complaining. She just can't sit still. She wants to train, eat, even raise Uchiha, but sitting there and listening to stuff she already knows. Pfft, a waste of time. Now I wonder why you came here then?" It might have sounded a little harsh, but it was a genuinely interesting question. But Naruto could have just as easily asked Sasuke. He's an excellent student, already a good fighter. Then both of them wonder. "Why, really?" Someday, maybe I'll tell you," she started speaking proudly at first, but then lowered her tone when the teacher turned to them. He stood by their desk, his eyebrows twitching, his hands on his hips, his expression angry, trying to ignore the narrowed eyes of the other children. They were saying, "Touch me, and we'll kill you. I see you're having fun here. Menma, could you please move over here? Since you're the class president, I'm entrusting them to your care. And retreated back to the board, hoping they wouldn't infect poor Menma with Hatake disease. He knew all too well how irritating Hatake Kakashi's manner of speaking was, how lazy he could be at times. He could give the Nara clan a run for his money. But if you nudged him in the right direction. Menma slowly rose from his seat, grabbed his things, and headed to his sister and the brunette's desk. His head was bowed, and his fists were clenched until the bones turned white. Sasuke noted with surprise that the blonde's gestures were the same. A heavy aura hung in the room. It was unclear who exactly was emanating from it. The children shivered and finally turned their attention to Irika. He seemed oblivious and continued teaching, but a momentary twitch in his shoulders gave him away. The entire lesson, the Jinchuriki sat quietly, doodling on her notepad. This always helped her calm down. But it was strange that she didn't even exchange a word with the Uchiha. She didn't argue, didn't get upset, in fact, she simply remained silent. Menma behaved the same way, but this didn't surprise anyone. He was always reserved, yet had many friends. He attracted people like a magnet and was quite popular in Konoha. The only thing was, he was a little nervous throughout the lesson, constantly fiddling with his pen. Sasuke watched this scene with interest and was increasingly struck by how similar he and Naruto were in appearance. The same bright eyes, a slightly similar face shape, straight lines, but the hair color was different. Naruto's was bright, long, and immediately noticeable, but Menma's was quite the opposite. A thick, black head of hair. Always disheveled, he took after Minato. The Uchiha looked ahead and, making sure Irika wasn't looking, gently touched the Hatake's hand. Menma narrowed his eyes warily, but continued writing down the material. Everything is fine? Looked into the eyes and, receiving a nod, continued. You'll tell me later anyway. Naruto snorted quietly, but perked up a little. The Uchiha was surprised to see their new neighbor's pencil break. The girl sitting in front of them turned at the sound and smiled uncertainly. Menma-kun, can I borrow another pencil? I barely. The brunette mumbled, blushing. She handed him the object with trembling hands and immediately turned away. Hinata Hyuga. She's currently 12 years old and already in love with Namikaze. Menma. Thank you, Hinata. The brunette said, trying not to speak through his teeth and not to glance sideways at the Uchiha. He's strange, Namikaze. Menma. Sasuke said indifferently and looked at his friend again. Now he could say with certainty that Namikaze was present in her past. Naruto herself rarely spoke about it, and then only a little. He once asked her about her family, but her answer was, Toussaint was the best father for me. The one who never forgot about someone like me. But as soon as he asked about her mother, he said, she is one of those people I would not really want to cross paths with. Not at all. Afterwards, they forgot about the whole topic, but it was noticeable how intense their training had become that day. It was as if she was preparing for something, but what? Why overexert herself so much and show no mercy? Why fake smiles? It seemed as if she was waiting for the right moment and was about to attack. Did it just dawn on you now? He snorts good-naturedly and rolls his eyes. They're currently walking through the park, hoping to get to the ramen shop and finally get something to eat. Another boring day at the academy, it turns out, can be quite tiring. It feels like we've done nothing, but we're still itching for sleep. Oh, I'm so sorry. The blonde immediately apologized, feeling like she'd bumped into someone. That's what it means to not look at the road. Looking up at what looked like a woman, judging by her build, they both froze in place. She looked slender, had fair skin, and her violet-blue eyes widened at the sight of Hatake Uzumaki. Her long red hair fell like a waterfall down her back and reached her ankles, while her front strands of hair beautifully framed her face on both sides. We apologize, Kushina-san, we didn't notice you, Sasuke said, seeing that his friend was unable to answer. He had known Uzumaki for a long time, back when she would come to their house and have long conversations with Mikoto. When Naruto finally came to her senses, she immediately lowered her head and hid her eyes behind her bangs. Just like at the academy. Yes, sorry again. The blonde responded a few seconds later, raising her eyes and smiling sunny, but in Sasuke's opinion, so falsely. She immediately decided to retreat from there, but a woman's hand stopped her. And Naruto? Having received a slight nod, she nevertheless removed her hand and nervously bit her lip. Sorry, Kushina-san, but we have training soon. Can we go already? Didn't even look at her and looked pleadingly at Uchiha. She's right, we should probably go. The brunette quickly realized, bowed, and headed off in the opposite direction, grabbing Uzumaki Hitaki's hand and dragging her along. The woman remained standing there, her hand trembling as she tried to reach her daughter. Naruto. Kushina, feeling hopeless and despairing, and seeing no way out of the unfortunate situation she's found herself in for her family, is overcome by her daughter's extremely negative emotions. She feels there's no way out, though in reality, she's long since given up on searching for one, because she can't. To do so, she needs to free Naruto from his dark emotions and start thinking with her head, rather than following other people's example. Kushina has long noticed that her daughter, already having a negative opinion of the villagers, is becoming the same. She despises them just as much, wants to kill them, and makes no attempt to understand them. She tries to appear independent and mature, but to Uzumaki, she remains a child, someone she couldn't help. After a difficult conversation for the family elders, the Namikaze Uzumaki, they finally decided to take this desperate and painful step. They kicked her out. They simply threw her out of the house. Kushina still remembers Menma crying and begging for his little sister back, and she also remembers how, with a calm expression on her face, she walked around her frozen son and locked herself in the room until Minato returned. Upon entering the bedroom, she wordlessly slid down the door to the floor, tears streaming from her eyes. She didn't scream, didn't punch the walls, didn't blame the residents. Kushina simply felt like a small part of her had been separated. Their family practically fell apart. Minato immersed himself in business, Menma began training more and rarely came home, and Kushina was still in a trance and haunted by her nightmares. Every night she woke up screaming and was beginning to worry Minato with her mental state. But what else can you do when you see your little sunshine being killed before your very eyes? She almost stopped eating, developed severe sleep deprivation, and developed dark circles under her eyes. Only after a month did Minato start spending a little more time at the house and helping Kushina. He put her to bed like a little girl, stuff her with food, and take her outside. Not that it helped, but she stopped locking herself in her room. And today she had a chance to see her. She didn't even immediately realize it was Naruto. Yes, she had become a beauty, no doubt, but that sparkle in her eyes disappeared the moment they met. She began treating her formally, as if she knew her only as the fourth's wife, or bloody habanera. That's all. The blonde didn't even want to talk to her. She didn't say it openly, but her eyes gave her away. Yes, perhaps her eyes are the most emotional. Naruto? Another destroyed training ground to add to the collection, and tired children. Who knew they'd be training until late in the evening, only to receive another reprimand from the Hokage? And the naive one thinks they've calmed down because complaints from the Genin and Chunin didn't arrive one day. What? The blonde lay on the ground, brazenly throwing her leg over the Uchiha, looking at their creation. Maybe you can tell me? Sasuke had already given up trying to push the other man's limb off himself, and decided to act differently. Uchiha is here. I think I am. He rolled his eyes and took a kick to the head. Part 6. POV Naruto. I woke up early and didn't sense a hint of a good mood anytime soon. It's become a habit. I don't want to go anywhere. My bed and books are my friends, that's all I need. Same goes for walks outside. Previously, the forest near my house and a few clearings by the river, strewn with the simplest flowers, were enough for me. And now I have to go to the academy. Oh well, today I need to try and help as many old ladies as I can get across the road of life, avoiding black cats all over Konoha. I think 2 laps around the village will be enough. That's right, daddy's girl, huh? Looking around the room, I was a little surprised, though not immediately. When did it become so dark and gloomy? Maybe you wouldn't know it from looking at me, but I really loved orange, and even ordinary light shades. It was always bright and light here. It creates an atmosphere of warmth and a certain carefreeness. Whenever Kakashi came into my room, he'd roll his eyes dramatically, place his hand over them, and then go back to reading his favorite book. Incidentally, I've been dying to read it for quite some time. And what was it about Toussaint that caught his eye? As far as I remember, he only read Jiraiya's books. He has a large readership, but the covers are starting to bother me. A loud knock on the door distracts me from my thoughts. It makes me very wary and prepares seals with various weapons sealed before. I glanced out the window several times and realized it didn't lead all the way to the main entrance. I shouldn't have any guests. Essentially, I only interact with Team, and he doesn't know where I live. So the question is, who? I only recently dropped my barrier to avoid suspicion. It's better if they think Toussaint, with the support of the Fuin, helped me. He's not here now, so the barrier should have dropped soon. I lazily descend the steep stairs and try to ignore the intensifying knocking. That's it, I'm not home. A few minutes later, it wasn't over, and I was already starting to shake with anger and indignation. If they know I'm here and haven't answered the door, then why keep banging on and on? What a persistent guest I've got. I don't care. It still doesn't stop me from calmly going to wash my face and brush my teeth. I hope this someone gets as far away from the house as possible by then, otherwise I'll have to send the coordinates myself. And even after 20 minutes, it hasn't stopped. The knocking would subside for only 5 minutes, but then it would start again, with a certain precision. I even closed the curtains, just in case. Is it just me, or has this person already circled the house 5 times? The house is easy to get into, but I'm still alone here. My nerves are getting the better of me, and I finally have to get up and go to the door. I can't sit here forever. Oh, it's a shame we don't have a peephole. This is my fault. As a child, I was too afraid of strangers and would hide at home for long periods. I still remember Toussaint dragging me out of the attic. I thought it was safest there when he wasn't home. That's it. I regretted opening it. Nope, no need. I don't want to remember from stories. Oh, that famous green tights. My guy, once my father's eternal rival. Despite his inert nature, Kakashi always agreed to yet another stupid competition with Guy and took it very seriously. Even if it had the most ridiculous origins. I don't want to have such a friendship, even in my thoughts. I myself have never met him, because after Toussaint's stories, all desire to meet might disappeared. And after describing his wardrobe, I generally started hiding in the forest if I sensed foreign chakra near the house. Toussaint grumbled and huffed, saying he was being abandoned to his fate, and how ungrateful I'd become. I never understood the point, why it was even necessary. They were already adults, and yet they acted like who knows what. Although, if you think about it, Sasuke and I had a similar situation at first, but over time everything settled down, and now we hardly compete, openly. Otherwise, we could have slapped each other and changed training grounds several times. Now, I almost choked with indignation when a box was shoved in my face, but I quickly came to my senses and barely managed a smile. An image, what can you do? His gaze only grew more energetic. As if he hadn't been allowed into the house and ignored for almost an hour. Thank you, Guy-san. Will you come inside? As Kakashi's dutiful daughter, I should show hospitality and respect, even though I don't really feel it. It's so disgusting, and even scary in some ways, talking to other people. I don't want to be human. Although, if you think about it, I don't remember him ever mocking me or humiliating me, like many shinobi. Maybe he just didn't have time, or was it laziness? Funny. No, he rammed me so quickly that it didn't even occur to me at first. Yeah, maybe it was a mistake, and it wasn't who I first thought. I was sure he would fly into the house and knock down everything in his path. And I would have to clean it all up. Heck, I even stepped aside. Father, you didn't tell me something back then. I see the power of youth boiling within you. If you're the daughter of my eternal rival, then you'll be next. But first, you need to train. Let's go. I take back my words. Wait, what do you mean, next? Is this some kind of hint or something? He quickly runs out into the street, and I glance thoughtfully at the forest. Or maybe after all. Yeah, right, he's already running back. He must have noticed the lost one. My heart felt heavy, and I felt nauseous. I'm sorry, but I need to go to the academy now. I automatically made my voice as sad as possible and, lowering my eyes under my bangs, rolled my eyes. People almost always fall for this image. I don't think the green beast of Konoha will be an exception. They're all too similar and monotonous. They fall for the cover, not what's inside. That's probably why I like reading. I'm always disappointed. Uzumaki, be careful. I remember when he was still with your mother, this guy always tried to compete with Kakashi. Even if he was busy with his own affairs. Kurama's growling voice echoed in my head. It's been a while since I've spoken to him. No, we don't chat for hours, we don't make nice. It's just that he often warns me when there's danger and always treats my cuts and bruises. He makes my muscles stop aching faster after training, expands my chakra channels, and so on. That's quite enough for me. Okay, but his words are quite alarming. No, I wasn't planning on being at the academy on time today. I'd like to take a little stroll around Konoha, and maybe even train. But alone, or maybe with Sasuke, if I see him along the way. I doubt he'd refuse a light sparring session. I've gotten used to him, but imagining myself in the company of a stranger instantly makes me a little uneasy. Maybe I could get along with people, but what can I do if I don't even want to consider myself like that? I'd rather be, as they said, a demon, but not like that. And the green tights are getting closer, their expression already more worried. Disappointed? Well, what difference does it make? I was about to run away from here, when I remembered he's one of the best in taijutsu. I have trouble with that. And running away won't work if he practically dug up something from Toussaint's body to find a child. He's a very persistent guy, obsessed with the power of youth. I wouldn't say he's stupid, but I wouldn't call him a genius either. I don't think it would be that hard to trick him. But still, I need to be prepared. He's a professional jonin and continues to serve Konoha faithfully. And that's not good. Fine. But right after the academy, I'll start training you. How did his mood change so quickly? Maybe he's wearing a mask too. Classes have already started. I think it's time to go. Who knew walking around Konoha could be so boring and tedious? It's too bright and loud everywhere. I could barely stand it, smiling and greeting everyone who called out to me. There's also too much gossip in Konoha, and it's too frequent. I learned that in just one short walk down the street. Almost everyone already knows I'm Kakashi Hataki's daughter, and that I recently started attending the academy. But why do they care? Are they looking for information about me or my weaknesses? I've become too distrustful and can now detect a trap everywhere. It's irritating. Once again, I'm being distracted from my thoughts. This time, I heard what sounded like someone breaking through a wall. Pretty damn good. It was literally 5 meters away from me. Then came screams and curses. I don't envy that person. Not that I'm interested, but when I decided to turn around and look, I almost laughed out loud. Taking a closer look at the building, I confirmed my theory. It was a hospital, and the screams were coming from that very hole. I peered in with interest, barely suppressing the twitching corners of my lips. All I could see was a medic and a woman lying on the countertop, screaming nonstop. As far as I knew, this was a birthing room. Thanks to Kushina and her knowledge. Then I understood the screams and who the entire list of curse words was dedicated to. The father of the unborn child was sitting right under that very hole, pale, with wide eyes and dirt-stained clothes. He had obviously been pulled out of a mission. I could tell by his chakra that he was a powerful jonin. The Uchiha, and it was he, looked at the medic in horror, expecting another hole to appear in the wall, and then a head. End POV Naruto. The smile disappeared when she remembered who they were. Noira Rin and Obito Uchiha were her father's students. She didn't know them personally either, but she had an idea of them. She could have approached and talked, but now was definitely not the time. What if they were also sent by the Hokage? This thought quickly sobered her up. Deciding not to linger any longer, she picked up her pace, and soon she was running as fast as she could, straight into the alley. She'd had enough of human company. Enough. The academy immediately came to mind, and Irika being so mean. She suspected he knew who the Jinchuriki was, which is why he treated the blonde that way. Minato would definitely have sent his subordinates to monitor her and report her. The only thing that saved her was that most of the others in the class were on her side. How easy it was to manipulate people. Huffing angrily, Uzumaki Hatake didn't even notice she'd tripped over something soft. Her mood plummeted even further when she lost her balance and fell to her knees, scraping her skin raw. She needn't worry about that. Kurama would heal it, but there was still a slight sting. She was about to give this obstacle in the way a good kick, but instead, with a surprised gasp, she recognized in this lump a cat with chestnut-colored fur. Very thin, and with an ugly bow on her right ear. Disgusting, the blonde muttered, carefully untying the accessory and beginning to examine her again. Noting once again that she really was too thin. What kind of owners were they? Incidentally, there was no collar in sight. And there was no one to blame. After a moment's thought, she finally made up her mind. Hey, will you come with me? I'll give you something to eat. She slowly crouched down, so as not to frighten the animal even more, and raised her hand toward it. The cat flinched at first, but then heard a soft tone of voice and, after hesitating, moved a little closer. Naruto, still slowly, picked her up and hurried to Shunshin to her home. She was already silently praying she wouldn't see the power of youth, or the angry Yumino near him. Something told her that, as her teacher, he knew where she lived. And the academy. Today how once cancelled. Naruto laughs loudly, attracting attention, and utters utter nonsense, trying to make a ridiculous excuse to Irika for skipping class yesterday, but her eyes are filled with pain and loneliness. Her classmates continue to look at her with a certain admiration, amazed at her courage. It takes real skill to tease their teacher so openly. They believe in her pure, bright laughter, the cheerful twinkle in her eyes, but they don't notice the truth. Every word is steeped in lies. A pathological liar. They don't understand. Almost no one can understand her. Sasuke, without realizing it, doesn't want to see it, but continues to look exclusively at her. On her face, he wants to see only a smile and eyes full of joy and happiness. Real, not fake. But he still has to get to that point. But he needs to find out the reason before drawing conclusions. He clicks his tongue, looking with barely perceptible jealousy at some fearless boy who dared approach Doba, for some reason not wanting the boy to even touch her. A sharp sense of loneliness begins to awaken within Sasuke. Slowly but surely, the realization of his own grievances will dawn on him. And now the Uchiha only quietly hisses whenever one of his competitors tries to touch the blonde. Not to mention, he's not even ready to give up his personal all to her, as it turns out, brother. It wasn't hard to guess before, it's enough that you have eyes. He and Menma are too similar in appearance, and some of their personality traits are the same. Neither is particularly bright. Naruto doesn't notice anything and continues to smile falsely. Only when he's alone with the Uchiha does he drop all his masks and gradually begin to open up, not noticing the upturned corners of his friend's lips. The brunette is overjoyed, ready to smile at her, offer her a hand, and comfort her if needed. But now they're content with only teasing each other and silently understanding their feelings. Words are no longer necessary. But why? How could this possibly change the story? She doesn't believe it, she simply can't believe it anymore. Why is this? He continues to constantly dig around in his head and gets even more confused. He, however, notices the smallest details if they have to do with Hatake, memorizes every important moment, watches her movements, finds the most unique and personal ways to surprise her, and pays close attention to the most seemingly insignificant things about the blonde, like her midnight mutterings about her favorite local ramen shop and the glade where she prefers to train, or her comments on certain techniques. Both forbidden and the most basic. He himself still couldn't understand how she'd recognized them, but remembering who her father was calmed him down. After all, he'd been taught these seemingly simple, but in fact, highly complex techniques before. Now they just give him various scrolls for self-study. It's even easier that way. I'll make you smile, Hatake Naruto. He finally tore his gaze away from the blonde, who had finished talking with her classmates, and sat down in his seat by the window. When she finally looked at him, he invited him to sit next to him with a glance and chuckled softly. As always, words weren't needed here. Just a glance was enough to understand and love Naruto a little more. Part 7. It's deep night now, everyone's long asleep, except for one girl, who keeps whispering something nervously to herself, swaying from side to side, her skinny arms tightly clasped around her legs. The room is too monotonous and completely unsuitable for her. A fragile-looking blonde with bright blue eyes like the shards of sky themselves. The room is bright from the sun's rays, subdued by the color scheme. But everything changes over time, just like the girl. Night moves in, the room becomes gloomier than usual, but this time it's somehow gray and monochromatic. It begins to suit its owner more and more. During the day, she smiles brightly, laughs loudly, but at night, when she's left completely alone within these walls, she switches off her emotions and quietly begins to go crazy. The very rare sounds from the street bounce off the walls, creating a quiet echo of various voices, but not simplifying the situation. What's happening? She doesn't understand. She hears distant screams, accusations directed at her, but she doesn't even recognize their owners. Misunderstanding, tension. You did this! The Jinchuriki clearly hears this voice, mingled with anger and wild terror, and it immediately begins to seem like this person is clearly not very bright. If you're afraid, why start screaming and showing your hatred? Still, the voice is so familiar, but no matter how hard you try, you can't recognize it. So why does it hurt so much? I've long since gotten used to it and come to terms with it, but those feelings cannot be erased from my memory. Who's there? She looks around frantically and presses herself even deeper into the bed, trying to find with her gaze the one emitting quiet sobs. This time, they clearly don't belong to her. I'm sorry, Naruto. The man was clearly trying to restrain himself from breaking into hysterics. Uzumaki Hatake understood this better than anyone, but this man unconsciously evoked anger and disgust. She tried with all her might to remember who was speaking, but again, nothing came of it. Cold, indeed, without even noticing, the window swung open and a faint night breeze blew in. Barely rising on shaky legs, she began to take slow, wary steps, turning at every rustle. She wanted to wrap herself in the blanket as tightly as possible so as not to hear anyone, but getting sick wasn't in her plans right now. Get out of here! A sharp, terrified scream makes me quickly step back and fall, due to the uncollected scroll. This time, it was a woman screaming on the verge of a breakdown, her voice hoarse but eerily clear. Murderer! Finally, a disgusting voice is heard, and something like retreating footsteps are heard. Stop it! Enough! A scream full of pain, so pitiful even to herself, but non-existent to everyone else. It was the last sound that night, from that house. Flashback. And I-san, when will they start training me too? The fourth's daughter asked quietly, swinging slowly on the old swing. She doesn't get a word in response, but she still sees her brother's gentle smile, and then the way he pats her head again. He always did this, it had become a sort of habit, it could both calm her and support her. She, on the other hand, always frowns discontentedly for show, and then begins to pout. Tusan started training you a long time ago, but all he keeps telling me is, that's it, when you grow up. Sometimes I feel like he's just like the rest of the villagers, it's even scary. He frowned again with displeasure and spoke his mind directly. This was one of his sister's favorite qualities. During conversations, she never beat around the bush, but spoke directly, looking the person she was talking to in such a way that they didn't dare look away. Even from childhood, she could instill her superiority over others. Everything will pass, just be strong. Ignore them and remember, only you can decide how others see and consider you. She may not have understood the meaning of these words then, but she remembered them for a long time, and now she has her own views and plans for this conversation. You know what's really scary? The realization that everything you believed in this is absolute nonsense. This time he can no longer look at her and begins to carefully examine the training ground, as if he had found something interesting. What are you talking about, Anai-san? He tilted his head to the side childishly, trying to figure out what had so intrigued Menma. Many of his words were incomprehensible even now. He always acted beyond his years, spoke almost as if he were his parents' equal, started training much earlier, and had a mindset completely unsuited to a child. If you really want to practice, I can help you out a little, but don't forget that I'm still a beginner myself. He quickly changes the subject and gently ruffles her hair again, and to her offended grumbling, hands her a few kunai. End of flashback. POV Naruto. Movement, that's life. That's what your mind decided and went nuts. The fox summed up and covered his eyes with a huge paw. It's already early morning, and he's already starting to tease me in every possible way. Before, I wouldn't have thought that I could communicate so freely with the nine-tailed fox. Even during our first meeting, I was able to fully sense his full power and might over people, but then I was consumed by despair and didn't quite understand the whole situation. Huge, strong, he exuded bloodthirstiness. I wanted to run away, hide as best I could, confident that they wouldn't be able to find me again, and would simply forget about me. The only thing that stopped me was that for just a moment, I saw in his bloody understanding and his long-awaited salvation in his eyes. He was like me, but he had experienced much more. I don't think this is good. What will we do if this happens not only at night? I get straight to the point, ignoring his obvious mockery. NPOV Naruto. There's nothing we can do now. Try to control it somehow, unless you want to visit Yamanaka. He sighs quietly and covers the Jinchuriki's body with one of his tails. And get some sleep finally. The kunai hit their target right on target, the trees shatter into splinters, and the charred grass gets into your eyes, making you wince in pain and try to avoid it more carefully. Come out, I've noticed you for a long time. Itachi doesn't even look in his direction and continues to hit the target. Your abilities have gotten even better. A smile glimmers imperceptibly at the corners of his lips and he jumps down from the tree, noticing how his ototo tenses. He grips the kunai a little tighter for a moment and easily pierces the tree with it. But his face doesn't change. He has no right to show emotion in front of his clansman, even if it's his brother. Do you need something? He gets straight to the point and remains committed to it until the end. Itachi is alarmed by the way Sasuke's gaze has become even colder and more indifferent, as if it's not his ototo in front of him at all, but a perfectly crafted puppet. Uchiha is not angry about this. He deserved it, and he is not the only one that Sasuke deserves. He deigned to give her that look. It looks like he's deliberately trying to push people away, to make them wary and not interfere, but more often than not, the opposite happens. At school, he's the best student in his class, handsome, and also the second heir to the great clan. This attracts, but also makes you wary. No matter how handsome he is, no matter how much they value the rules of conduct in their clan, it won't be difficult for him to send everyone away not only with a look, but also with Kato. It's understandable. Itachi isn't intimidated by this. Sasuke himself understood that. He's still too weak compared to his brother. He used to be so driven by his father's recognition and the power to become like Anai-san. Now it doesn't bother him so much. They're different people, and San, to put it mildly, doesn't care anymore. He'll still silently listen to all his shortcomings as before and grow stronger, but not for his brother's desires. Shursui recently returned from a mission. He suggests the three of them train. He shrugs and looks around. Yeah, it's hardly possible to train here anymore, and how long has he been here? Shursui? Wasn't he planning on taking a rest? He asks skeptically and slowly begins to collect the scattered kunai and shuriken, followed by the elder Uchiha. The task was not difficult. He paused for a second, noticing the younger man's eye roll. He'd already realized the mission was, as always, not a simple one, otherwise why send the Uchiha clan genius there? Itachi, realizing his mistake, decided to change his answer slightly so as not to make things worse. More, he really wants to see what you've been able to achieve. It was partly true. Shui had already asked him how Sasuke was doing and whether he was making progress in his training, although he hadn't yet offered to be present. But he had decided that he needed to mend his relationship with Otuto, hoping for his friend's understanding. Shui had always understood and supported him, and that was enough. He was his best friend, almost like a brother. But Itachi was pained to realize that he hadn't been able to devote as much time to Sasuke. Sasuke was growing and coping with everything practically alone. He endured all of Toussaint's discontent, and he also saw the pain in Kasan's eyes, but he couldn't do anything when Sasuke could have helped him at least a little, supported him, and ultimately given him advice. Unfortunately, he never did anything of the sort. He didn't want to hinder his improvement, because he saw how quickly he was growing stronger and maturing. Time went on, and Otuto became even more callous and independent. There was only a blazing light in his gaze like the greatest fire. Hatred. It seemed his eyes were growing even darker with each passing day, though where else could they go? At times like these, the elder Uchiha sees himself in him, the same abandoned child who no one can understand or give even a little of their time to. He once dreamed of the ideal, and then he simply realized that everything around him, that's life. It's never been perfect, and it never will be. There are always people who will prove it to you, trample all your dreams and hopes on the spot, and leave without even looking back. They don't care. People only care about their own desires and preferences. What do you need to fight for, to become stronger? The answer is simple. To please them all. But Itachi had never even considered this before. Does a person really need to experience catastrophe, pain, loss, the nearness of death to understand something? And all that's left is emptiness and an inability to understand others. Sometimes the simplest truths must be reached through roundabout routes. Oh, Sasuke, long time no see. Shui was already at the training grounds, reading some scrolls, but he immediately jumped to his feet upon noticing the arrivals. As soon as he approached, he looked at Itachi in silent question. It was unexpected, after all, that he'd finally decided to bring his brother along. But just from that look, he finally began to understand and laugh softly, turning his full attention back to the younger man. You've grown up. How are your training sessions going? He ruffles his hair out of habit and smiles stupidly. For some reason, Sasuke freezes and, frowning slightly, peers into his face, trying to find a resemblance to the man who has been haunting him for weeks. He suddenly wonders if Naruto would smile like that. She would also be much stronger than her peers, genuinely joke around and share stories with him, just like Itachi and Shui. Could she even be a carefree child? Is something wrong? It's already a bit awkward, Uchiha asks, placing his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, who's been staring at him sullenly for the past 5 minutes. It seems like they just met, and he's already managed to do something? The look even made him feel uncomfortable, as if he were about to be scolded. Meanwhile, Itachi, still speechless, stared intently at Otuto's face. What's happening to him? Why doesn't this stop, and why is he becoming more and more unreadable? The brunette doesn't answer, merely gently shaking off Otuto's hand and shaking his head. Oh yeah. I took the food scrolls, I can have a little snack, I just haven't eaten anything yet. He tries to defuse the situation again and immediately turns around heading towards the nearest tree, as soon as he catches the disapproving look of his brother. Can you cook? This was probably the first thing the younger Uchiha said after 20 minutes. Meanwhile, the other 2 brunettes were finishing their favorite meal, dango, and talked about various missions. It's not that listening to all this was so boring, but sitting there and realizing you don't understand half the conversation is worse. Cooking, it's simple actually. Steam is coming out. It's getting ready, smoke is coming out ready. The genius shrugs easily, but then jumps back in shock from his clanmates, who couldn't resist and choked hard anyway. Part 8. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and from the Hataki house, irritated and slightly confused shouts are heard, and even curses mixed with hurried steps that every now and then turn into a run. What? Are the scrolls already gone? No, I urgently need to learn new techniques. Naruto rushed around the whole house, opening drawers and cabinets with trembling hands, and then slamming them shut with all her might, unconsciously causing the furniture to creak pitifully. So much negativity, and just because of some papers. A disgruntled growl in her head made her stop instantly, and instinctively put her hand to her stomach. And really, why was she so worried? So what if she ran out of the training scrolls Kakashi usually gave her? So what if her development slowed down a bit? But Uzumaki Hataki couldn't allow that, constantly afraid that without daily training she might give up everything or lose her form. It was terrifying to become a weakling again, incapable of standing up for herself and fighting back. A weak child, all alone against all her internal problems and worries, incapable of anything but screaming for help. I agree, it's stupid. You can get them yourself. And with a completely calm face, she leisurely began to tidy up. She, the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, the adopted daughter of the copy ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village, was supposed to worry about such nonsense? Well, no, that wasn't part of the plan. There was a moment of silence. Someone continued to clean up their pogrom, as if nothing had happened, while another witness to this scene tried to comprehend and, if possible, accept the words of others. Get it, huh? A slightly muffled voice came into my subconscious again, but this time it sounded somewhat skeptical and a little doomed. How else? The girl says indifferently and sits down on the sofa, not taking her eyes off a certain point. Do you think I'll be able to find really good and useful scrolls anywhere? Merchants need to give something to their customers to make money these days. In the village, you need to buy everything from clan members, not civilians. But since we're short on cash, we'll have to find another way. He shrugs lightly and closes his eyes, only to be immediately met with the intense gaze of ruby eyes. If you get noticed, we'll have even more problems. They'll assign you and BU again. Your idea won't end well. He doesn't take his eyes off her, looking straight at her, and his voice is loud and commanding. Naruto sees himself reflected in front of him again. He also doesn't dare look away, doesn't give up, and goes on towards his goal. She doesn't understand why she's slowly starting to boil. No matter who's in front of her, no matter how loud their words, she won't listen. She has a goal, and it's the only thing she lives for. Kurama. The Jinchuriki doesn't scream, doesn't hiss, doesn't beg for his help. His voice is even, with a hint of steel, and his eyes are like shattered glass that can never be put back together. I need these scrolls, they'll help us achieve the goal you gave me. I doubt you've managed to forget what people really are. Do they deserve peace and quiet? Why do they laugh so carefree, and not allow others to do the same? Weren't you locked up for so long because of them? I understand that you're trying to protect us from danger, but I don't want to consider the Fourth's people an obstacle. She stares at him for another minute, then slowly fades away, watching as his bloodshot eyes widen. Was she cruel in saying all this? Yes. Does she believe her words are true? Also, yes. Does she regret it? No. Definitely not. Uzumaki Hataki could clearly feel the flame raging within him, the pure madness. Every breath this is an attempt to restrain him, every word of hers, the risk that the flames might burst out, but the Jinchuriki stubbornly stood her ground. Naruto herself didn't know why she had reacted so harshly to his attempt to protect her. The world was too monotonous, too gray and devoid of genuine emotion. Just a black and white sheet. And people are usually selfish, caught up in their own illusions of future, but not real joy, so everything seems wonderful to them. But that's not true, is it? Why deceive yourself? Naruto saw life only in very young, uncomprehending children, and their eyes full of interest and genuine admiration for everything around them. It was as if they brought a unique joy, without even realizing it. But what would happen when the child grew up, and what might they become? A bully, always restless and eager to mock the weaker. A withdrawn person, no longer able to express themselves and easier to hide somewhere under the blanket, so that their existence would be forgotten forever. The liars who care only about their own lives and are willing to deceive everyone for their own success. Or those who conceal their true emotions, hiding, again, behind falsehoods. However, the blonde had long ago identified herself more with the latter. There were too many similarities. But no matter how much she despised people, she still believed, albeit weakly, almost imperceptibly, but she knew. All is not lost yet. Even in their first meeting, in her opinion, he showed weakness, if not a mistake, towards her. Not only did he not allow the cage to be opened for his own freedom, but he also went over to her side, uniting them. She, his jailer, an obstacle to freedom, and the reason he ended up in this damp place. According to Uzumaki Hitaki herself, the fox should have killed her from the very beginning and finally, literally, trampled all the virtues of the people of Konoha. Why did Kurama help? Why did he save and grant life? This is clearly not the act of the demon fox. And even if they were noticed, the obstacle could be immediately eliminated. If necessary, he would simply kill. This is not an army of shinobi, to be so afraid and wary of engaging in battle. But there is a downside. How can she get rid of the evidence? However, that is precisely why she started all this. From early childhood, the girl was initiated into the secrets of the Uzumaki clan's fame, Fuinjutsu. After reading many books, she began to admire it, wanting to become just like the people they talked about. These masters, they were simply amazing, that sometimes Naruto began to be upset about her hair color. She wanted to be like them, with that fiery red hair, with that uncontrollable character, but alas, now she couldn't allow herself that. And these chakra chains were probably even stronger than they described. They wouldn't talk about their full power, would they? Too cunning and crazy for that. They are the ones from whom you can expect absolutely nothing. The result will still be completely different than expected. Many underestimate Fuin masters, as before, when you could meet them at least one at a time in almost every village, now that there are almost no redheads left. Yes, they are respected, admired, but they're completely underestimated. Everyone thinks Fuinjutsu is just sealing and drawing an explosive seal. Now, many no longer remember what the Uzumaki clan is truly capable of. Previously, these blood demons could tear a person to pieces with just one seal, but now that almost all of them have been killed, many have forgotten that they were one of the strongest clans. Now, Naruto believed that she simply had to restore all respect to her clan and finally defend their honor, so that no one would even think of attacking again. But alas, she herself didn't yet know any truly good techniques in this field. She tried to find them in the village, even asking teachers, but it was no use. The academy never taught her anything new. The only thing she managed to find was, it's a sealing scroll, and then you can figure out how to create it yourself. Surprisingly, it wasn't that difficult, perhaps due to the Uzumaki blood and great friendliness. Fuin. It didn't really matter then, but the main thing is that this knowledge can be very useful now. Flashback. Naruto? Did you really enjoy reading it too? Unexpected. A slightly surprised, but no less joyful voice cut through the silence. HM? Oh yeah, that's a way to pass the time before training. Uzumaki Hitaki shrugs lightly and slowly turns the page. And what are you reading? Is it really some kind of novel, or even a fairy tale? He narrows one eye slyly and chuckles softly at his daughter's slightly gloomy expression. Naruto chuckles softly and leans his back against the tree, raising his head to the sky. Novels? I don't think I'm ready for them yet. Naruto glances sideways at Hitaki, who instantly blushes with embarrassment, lifting his mask higher. He grins, running his eyes over the lines of the book. I don't believe in fairy tales, it's all a lie and untruth. It's all hope, not a reality full of cruelty and deception. I don't understand why the author describes this. Maybe they're trying to show that life can be wonderful. Maybe they're trying to convince you that there's someone who will definitely save you at the last moment. But it's all pure deception. He frowns again and peers at the text with displeasure. Kakashi glances thoughtfully at the blonde and quickly takes the book from her hands, peering at the writing, ignoring the Jinchuriki's indignant exclamations. Only a few minutes pass after the Jonin read a few pages and glanced questioningly at his daughter. What was it about this book that caught your attention? It's all battles and war scenes. I can hardly even call it fiction, not reality. Isn't it more interesting to read something like science fiction? I thought girls your age liked that. If they even enjoy reading. He muttered the last sentence and thought hard about something, occasionally glancing at Naruto. Thanks to them, you can come up with a new strategy in battle or find a way to escape. Even though it's, as you said, made up. The person who wrote it clearly had to go through something similar, and then it's a matter of imagination and embellishment. Maybe they even heard about it from other people. You're talking about training again. He glances skeptically at the blonde and nevertheless returns the stolen thing to her. Yes, Naruto reminds him very much of himself at that age. From early childhood, he was completely independent and self-assured, sometimes even displaying arrogance and condescension. Despite this, Hatake was very perceptive and intuitive, quickly grasping the current situation. However, after a certain point, he became more stern, distant, and cold towards others, until his daughter appeared. POV Naruto. And here's the vault. It's already 2 in the morning. I managed to get ready quickly enough. I even remembered to eat. Yeah, right, why not remember about food at this hour? I spent about half an hour trying to reach Kurama, but he stubbornly ignores me and banishes me from his subconscious. Surely my words couldn't have hurt Kyuubi so much. I probably could have blamed my behavior on the thoughtless words of a child, if that child hadn't wanted to destroy this village, and even then, it's a shame, Cammy, I doubt I've ever run this fast. I was spotted. I managed to grab a couple of scrolls, but they spotted me at the last minute. My legs are already moving, but my head is clogged. I can't feel any chakra in my body. Most likely, some seal was activated at the entrance, blocking the flow. I need to do something quickly. It's at least 5 minutes to the nearest exit, and I doubt they won't catch me in that time. I really don't want to be watched by masked nannies. My life may be like a TV series, but the only people who know the plot are Kurama and me, who seems to have decided to abandon me to my fate. There's no time to think, and my chances of escape are only getting smaller. What the? I can't move, my body is paralyzed by fear. And it's not even because someone is holding me tightly by the waist. I don't understand why I want to scream so much, but they clamp a hand over my mouth just in time. Why? They'll call the others now. And again that feeling, I want to run. I need to get rid of the nuisance. Kurama? He's here, I can still hear him. I'm not alone. I need to kill him. Only the dead can keep a secret. My pulse is calming down, I no longer feel fear, everything is returning to normal, and only now I notice that no one is attacking me or calling for help. I'm too weak, a shinobi should analyze faster, but instead, she spent too much time thinking. Unacceptable. Kill. This isn't Kurama, is it? I can't even keep track of my actions anymore. I don't understand how I managed to break free from the grip he's holding, my elbow pressed to the man's neck, and I immediately draw my kunai. For the first few seconds I freeze, trying to remember the owner of those eyes. They're familiar, but that doesn't matter now if he's an obstacle. Various images flash before my eyes. I barely remember, but I can still feel them. That feeling again. They managed to catch me, just like they did back then, back in the past, which so diligently haunts me. No, no, no! I won't let it, I can't. Calm down, Blondal. His voice was even and calm, as if I couldn't kill him at any moment. How hard it was for me to recognize him, Uchiha Sasuke. I quickly jumped to the side, feeling my eyes widen involuntarily, and the kunai almost falls out of my hands. What is he doing here? He's definitely not fit to guard this place, even if he's not a genin. Did they really send him to spy on me? Traitor? He instantly wants to start questioning me, but I have to shut up when I hear quick footsteps coming our way. I quickly pressed myself against the wall to reduce the chance of spotting the outsiders. Duck but hasn't even moved and continues to stare at me. What does he want? Where did that ninja go? The Hokage will kill us if he finds out. At first, the voice was indignant, but with each word it grew quieter and began to tremble slightly. Idiots, they couldn't even discern my gender, and this is called Jonin of the Hidden Leaf. The only thing I can commend is the seal placed at the entrance. And even then, I doubt it's theirs. Listen, we're the only ones on duty today, right? Now that's interesting. Have they really come up with something already? Some guesses are already forming in my head. I doubt the thief will come here again. Let's just keep quiet. As I suspected, this is just another pathetic coward. Disgusting becomes. I turn my head slightly towards Uchiha and notice how his face twists slightly. He's also displeased. I can see it in his eyes. Perhaps this is something we have in common. We both don't want to be in the company of such creatures. Are you nuts? You can't hide something like that. What if he stole some important document or scroll? We'll end up in jail with him. He's smarter than his partner in misfortune, but what next? Well, you figure it out yourself. If number 4 finds out, we'll be in trouble, and the others will start goading us about letting some petty thief get away. Just think how much our status will plummet. If they notice the loss, we'll say it wasn't on our shift, and that's it. Yeah, right. Every circle has at least one rat like that, willing to frame anyone for their own safety, just to avoid getting caught themselves, poor thing. I even feel sorry for the other guy. That's how sane people disappear. I've already become indifferent to what happens next. I know where this is all leading, it was obvious anyway. The guy will be scared by such pressure to keep the secret, and eventually agree to keep quiet. Then, after some time, they'll be discovered, and then punishment and contempt from their colleagues will follow. In short, idiots. The whole time they were arguing, I kept trying to figure out what Sasuke was doing there. Not only was he born into the Uchiha clan, but he was also the son of the clan leader. I can't believe they didn't give him the scrolls. I remember when I was at their house, his whole table was covered in them. So, what were you doing in the vault? Shinobi below Jonin rank aren't allowed in here. We were already leisurely heading home, though almost in silence. I wonder how his relatives will handle their youngest's late visit. Hey, I was coming back from practice and noticed you were in a hurry, so I decided to take a look. You could have said, thank you, training? It's 2 a.m, Sasuke's coming back from training. And why don't I trust this? He's also kind of disgruntled. It seems he's ready to send me to hell for such a disregard for his care. Thank you, Sasuke. It's still worth thanking, otherwise I wouldn't have a peaceful life. They would have assigned Rutambu, and rumors would have spread throughout the village about what a Jinchuriki looks like. Gossip and Konoha are simply made for each other. And why is that gloomy ass looking at me like that, even trying not to show surprise, acting like I'm thanking him for the first time, when I also have all the feelings besides pride? Although, right, hide your surprise, Understalker. He really was counting on catching me red-handed, but no way, Uchiha. See how cool and unflappable I can be? But still, how difficult it can be indignant. How can girls throw such lengthy tantrums so easily, and over such trivial things too? Kakashi often told me about this, and there were some things written about it in the books. I think the easiest thing to do is hit him. In fact, that's what I did.